Hello and welcome to episode 141 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR. I'm the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry. We're coming off of a tight end and defense broke the slate kind of week. Yes, that's right. Darren Waller went for 48 points. Absolutely off the wall, ridiculous. And Patriots defense / special teams went for 31 points. I mean, maybe even more mind-boggling than Darren Waller's 48. The thing on Waller that's crazy is how popular he was in week 12. In week 12, he was around 30% owned in cash. In cash, 30% owned at 6K against the Falcons. He was 20% owned in tournaments. He had 6.3 DK points as the Raiders laid, one of the biggest eggs of the season in Atlanta. But fast forward 1 week, just 1 week, Waller against the Jets, the best possible matchup for a tight end per our DVP metrics. And Waller was basically unowned in cash and 9% in tournaments. That said, even in hindsight, I think paying for Waller in cash would have been bad on DraftKings. Like, I know the Ferk Daddy play got really lucky. The Anthony Ferkser play got really lucky to get 10 points. But, a reasonable 4 target projection for him versus 7.5 or so for Waller, but save $3,600 and knock out the weakest position in the game. Yeah, I'm just not playing Waller in cash there. But in tournaments, my God, man, it's staring us right in the face. We knew the Ferk Daddy had a floor of 0. Him and Jordan Akins combined for like 35% ownership. And I didn't do it on Waller. I had 5 GBP teams. I played Akins, I played Goddard, I played Tanyan, I played Ferk. I didn't play Waller. So that was frustrating. Just take my GPP bro card away. Strip me of it bare. As for the other slate breaker, the Patriots D/ST, shutout, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 1 block kick, 31 DraftKings points. I don't think I ever remember a bigger score from a defense. And of course, really unpredictable, only 4% owned, even at just 2,400 was the Patriots D. So yeah, it was hard to compete in any GPPs if you didn't have one of Waller or the Patriots. Just a bit odd to have tight end and D/ST break the slate so hard. As for cash, I thought it was really straightforward, especially once Madison and Isaiah Coulter were ruled out for their respective teams. Just a good reminder that every little thing can matter. Alexander Madison being out made it less likely that the Vikings could rest Dalvin. Dalvin ends up with 32 carries and 9 targets against the Jaguars. Isaiah Coulter being out made it less likely they could rotate through on Kiki Kute. He ends up running a route on 42 of Deshaun Watson's 48 dropbacks, goes 8, 141, 0 on 9 targets. I also thought it was straightforward on Ferkser. I'm not going to get into the punt tight end debate again. I can't face it. I'll save it for Friday when they try to get me to pay $7,400 for Travis Kelce. But I thought it was straightforward on Ferkser. I thought it was straightforward on David Montgomery. I'm actually surprised this David Montgomery thing turned into a debate. Like, we can't say that running back doesn't matter and then also say we're not paying $5,500 for 20 touches against the Lions. Like, our DVP metrics had the Lions allowing 9.3% more fantasy points than expectation to running backs. That's 5% more than any other team. Just an absolutely huge gap. Overall, the Lions are 28th in yards per play allowed. Ever since Tariq Cohen went down in week 3, David Montgomery has had literally no backup. He's averaging 5.2 targets per game. Now, a 6,500 or a 7K David Montgomery, that's a different story. But 5,500 in cash, I thought he was a cut above Devontae Booker, who was threatened by Jalen Richard, a cut above Myles Gaskin, because, Tua is just bad. Right now, Tua is not a talent maximizer. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a talent maximizer. And so that, for me, once we knew Tua was starting, I thought Montgomery was the play over Booker and Gaskin, and that made a difference. And just in general on guys like David Montgomery, empty touches are why so many running backs are bad plays in DFS and bad picks in season long. I really don't care about how many carries a dude gets between the 20s. That's not where we make our money. We make our money on running back targets and on carries inside the 10-yard line. Aaron Jones, Kamara, Eckler obviously come to mind. But David Montgomery is getting goal line work and he's getting targets. Of course he has a ceiling. Of course. Last thing, by the way, I think people have, kind of fatigue on all this late swap talk as we've had a lot of it lately, but just wanted to point out a simple one. If you were behind after the 1 p.m. games on Sunday, maybe you played Booker over Demont, or maybe you played Cooks without Kute or whatever, you should have at least considered getting off Eckler for Aaron Jones. In tournaments, Eckler ended up 25% owned, Aaron Jones 7 to 10%. And, we had the projections relatively close. Statistical projections, Austin Eckler 19.8 DK points, Aaron Jones 17.9. So just a really obvious situation with guys at the same price with a close projection, but a wide gap in ownership projection. Just a really easy one there. Okay. Before we get to today's listener questions, I wanted to remind everyone that our NBA product is live. Yes, that's right. The NBA starts in 2 weeks. Our draft kit powered by Mike Gallagher is live, and the DFS team of Drew Dinkmeyer, Andrew Wiggins, Leone, and Gallagher are getting everything set. I mean, we put so much into each Sunday NFL main slate. There are 7 NBA main slates every week. We will have full projections, top plays, everything that you're used to getting ready for NFL. We will have for NBA. If you are interested, head to the site to check that out. Okay, enough is enough. It is time for everyone's favorite portion of the program. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right, thanks to everybody for the questions. As always, got 7 of them to do today. Question 1 from Bo Dangles DFS. Why do the pros play satellite contests like the $7 Mega Q on Fanduel? Positive EV? Do they know something we don't? Satellite's a good strategy. Well, I mean, look, let's be honest. The lower the stakes, the softer the games are. And so these low dollar Mega Qs are certainly good games, certainly good action. Everybody that plays them are still unlikely to win a seat, but certainly plus EV, if you're a good player, there's not something we know that they don't or whatever. It's nothing like that. I mean, you guys obviously should realize by now that DFS is not like poker. I can make 1 team or 10 teams or 150 teams and enter them into everything on the site in less than 5 minutes. It's not like poker where, if I want to play something small, like 1-2 no limit or something, I have to sit there and play. So why wouldn't people looking to get a lot of volume enter these Mega Qs? You already have the teams made. As for the question, are satellites a good strategy overall? Well, I think they can be softer than normal games, and it's a way for smaller stakes players to get into something bigger. So that's good. What's bad is that you're essentially paying double rake. You pay the rake in the satellite, and then the tournament that you qualify for is also raked. And that's a lot to overcome. But still, I have nothing against it as long as people realize Qs and live finals are for fun and not for grinding. Question 2 from Adam. He says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you of getting COVID? If it's high, why are you so scared? If it's low, why aren't you more scared? Yeah, I don't really want to get into this at all. It's gotten so beyond political and crazy. I'll just say that no matter what your answer is to Adam's question, like we should all just try to be kind to each other, like just be kind. So, if you think COVID is massively overblown or I don't know, whatever you think, just realize there are people out there genuinely scared and endangered by it. So just be kind to them by wearing a mask or whatever. It's really not that big a deal. Just be kind. Peace and love, man. Peace and love. Question 3 from Ben. What are your thoughts in season long when a team in the cellar forgets to start a player? Do you consider starting a player on the wire if possible, or just let it ride and figure out a fair punishment for next season? No, this is an easy fix. In my opinion, the only way to play season long is there has to be a significant financial penalty for the team which finishes last. Has to be. Otherwise, it turns into a shameful mockery at the end of the season with no one paying attention. Like lack of engagement and incentive is what ruins a league. So in any league I would commish, last place would have to contribute an extra buy-in to the prize pool. So if the buy-in to the league is 500, the person who finishes last ends up paying 1,000. Keep everyone motivated to the end, and you don't have things like someone not starting, someone in the cellar not starting a quarterback or whatever. Easy game. Question 4 from Swellmuth. NFL props seem like the most beatable market out there. Is the NBA prop market similar? Any advice on attacking NBA props? Yeah, so for those of you guys that aren't on ETR, every Friday night after the DFS show that I do with Evan and Wiggins, I bet some props on Draftkings and Fanduel. And then I write them up so people can tail them if they want or track them or whatever. Last year I went 50 and 36. This year I'm 41 and 22. Shout out to me. All the bets, for the most part, are minus 110 or so. Now, I know what you're thinking. Adam, you're a genius. We're all going to be rich. No, we're actually not. The reason I don't even really love tweeting about props or talking about it is because once you bet on props at a sports book at any kind of volume and show that you have a pulse, you're going to get limited. Like, I can't bet more than $12 on a prop at most books in Pennsylvania right now, and that's not like humble bragging at all. That's just like the reality. Like, if you have any pulse, you can beat props at the same rate I'm beating them with some work. And so that's problem one. It's just not scalable. Problem two is the lines are going to move fast. So I post this article on Friday night. Within a couple hours, the lines have moved massively. Like a couple weeks ago, I had Mo Alley Cox under 2.5 catches at minus 109. And this was like midnight on Friday. By the time I woke up on Saturday at like 7 a.m., it was already minus 175, under 2.5 minus 175, AKA no longer worth a bet. And that's not because, I'm some market moving whale. It's because the prop market is so small. The limits are so low. Again, props are just a marketing thing for books that it doesn't take much to move a line. Let's say 4 guys try to bet $1,000 on the Mo Alley Cox prop, it's going to move. Whereas in a liquid market, like say NFL sides or totals or NBA sides or totals, 4 people betting 1,000 on a side doesn't even register. It's not even a pebble in the ocean. Now, all that said, I don't want to sound negative on props. It's undoubtedly the most beatable market out there. And if you're careful, if you bet small, if you hide the props in amongst some other more liquid bets, there's a chance that you can beat a book on props for a while. And as fantasy players, this is what we do. This is what we know. And I know I've said this a million times, but people using the prop market to make DFS lineups are just comical to me. It should be the other way around. We know better than these prop lines. We should be betting them, not using them to make lineups. As for the question about NBA props, there's nothing too different. Generally speaking, have a good set of projections, be ready to fire when lines pop, take advantage of injury situations that we can react better to than the books. And yeah, we'll be doing some prop stuff with the NBA, so stay tuned for that. For those of you that are joining us for NBA season. Question 5 from Andrew. He says, "Is there any difference between the PSM, the penis size model, and the GAM, the grown ass man model? Does GenderLabs do the measuring themselves, or do you just receive data from the teams?" Yeah, this whole GAM thing, this whole grown ass man thing, I know nothing about that. I know that's a bit that Mans does. I'm not that familiar with the qualifications. I think the way that they're doing the grown ass man stuff is they just look at a dude and, if he's tall and he lifts weights, he's a grown ass man. And that's fine. That's fine. But what we're trying to do here at GenderLabs with the PSM, the penis size model, is use actual data. And sometimes, looks can be deceiving. We had incomplete data on Cooper Kupp heading into week 13, and I really didn't want to play him because of that. Cole Beasley would not pop in the GAM model, but he's popping in the PSM, which explains a lot. But to answer the second part of the question from Andrew, basically, how do we acquire the data for the PSM? So GenderLabs, one thing we did with our latest fundraise, our Series D funding round, by the way, we have some great strategic investors on this round: Bob Kraft, Ron Jeremy, Max Gilliam, Sean Kemp, to name a few. But we used a portion of this Series D round money to develop proprietary technology that can actually record penis size from afar, similar to the data being used on the next gen stats in the NFL. So we're excited about this. Question 6 from Sigmund Bloom, friend of the show. He said, did you ever think Lynn Bowden could be the difference between you making and missing the playoffs in the Roto World Dynasty League? Yeah, so you guys know I'm not really into Dynasty or season long. Not that those formats aren't fun, because they are. Especially Dynasty. I think the process of figuring out when to sell a guy, when to buy a guy, thinking long term while trying to win short term. I think Dynasty is super interesting and fun. But the thing is, and I know I'm sick, I'm not recommending this to anyone, but I play fantasy for money, not for fun. And so even if you got into a high stakes fantasy league, 5K or 10K league, which those are obviously really hard to find, but let's say you found one of those, well, you have to grind your dick off on that one entry. So let's say you're good, you have a 20% ROI expectation. If you're in a 5K, you grind this team all year. I mean, so many hours, so much thought. And you're grinding it for a 20% ROI on a 5K is $1,000 over the course of a year. Whereas in DFS, obviously you can play 5K 10 times a week, different slates, keep rolling your ROI over and over, compounding it over and over. So anyway, that's a long way of saying, yes, I enjoy this Dynasty League and I'm in with a bunch of good guys from when I worked at Roto World. And this league's been going for a long time. It's great. And it's really deep. It's 14 teams, 26-man rosters or something insane like that. So yeah, like I'm not really in this league grinding, but I ended up with basically 0 RBs, which by the way, I think is right in Dynasty for what it's worth. Like, I mean, 0 RB is right in a lot of leagues, but investing any capital, Dynasty capital in RBs whose role can be taken by a dude off the street and whose careers are, by far the shortest and have the highest injury rates. As someone who hasn't put a lot of work into Dynasty, it just strikes me as insane, especially in full PPR, to use a lot of capital on running backs. So anyways, I have like no running backs on my team. I ended up with Lim Bowden at a starting running back spot this week, and I was enough. We're on to the playoffs. LFG. All right, question 7, last question we're going to do today comes from Kyle. Says, Adam, we never heard your take on the Odell Beckham Jr. pooping situation. How much money would you need to let a smoke show take a steaming hot shit on your chest? Yeah, great point. Actually embarrassed that we haven't addressed this yet in this space. That's an oversight by me. I apologize. So if you didn't hear this story on Odell, it was probably 3 months ago. I wake up to a bunch of people tweeting me links to this video of these 3 young women on a radio show. And by the way, I appreciate that anytime there's some like intersection of sports and sex, everyone tweets me. That's cool. But anyway, one of these women says, hold on, I have a story about Odell I want to tell. And, she says that he likes to get shitted on, allegedly. Goes into some details. You can find the whole video pretty easily. Not the shitting video, I mean the radio spot. But for the record, I want to be clear that Odell has vigorously denied these allegations, vigorously. But regardless, I mean, look, man, I'm not here to judge anyone's sexual fantasies. I think a lot of people out there laughing at Odell are probably into some sick shit themselves, no pun intended. Obviously, for me, feces is going to be where I draw the line. Like I didn't get a dog for a long time due to the requirement that you have to handle feces. Thankfully, Disposa-Scoop came along and changed my life. But anyways, before I think I can give an amount, Kyle, I guess my question is, what exactly happens here? Like, what exactly is this fetish? Does she shit on me while I'm pleasuring myself and then it's over? Or does she shit on me and then we have intercourse? Like if she just does the scat thing and then I can go directly in the shower, I'd say I'd do it for something reasonable. 120K? Seems fair. Okay. That's going to do it for today's solo pod. Be sure to head to the site for the stretch run. And if you're into NBA, remember, if you're into NBA, season-long or DFS, we are ready to rock. Details on the NBA tab. Okay. For producer Luke, for Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.